All right. I would like to talk to you a bit about something. Maybe the secret to my success. And as of this moment when I'm recording this, how do you measure success? I think if you feel like you're successful at what you're doing, that already says success, right? Because success itself is quite the relative term. So I can say, if I take a look at my life, that whatever it is that I'm doing, I am successful at it because it is what I want to do. Now, of course, to me it was about finding out what I wanted to do first. And when I knew what I wanted to do, I knew what I had to do in order to do what I wanted to do. So before I knew what I wanted to do, I never saw any motivation in earning money. But when I realized that in a world that spins around money, like everything people want from you is basically money or time, then if you want freedom in the sense that you can do whatever you want in the kind of life you were born into, without retreating to the forest and living like a caveman, you will need money. And then I came across some of these spiritual people, and I came across like people living in communities, and I realized that they are all living a fantasy. They're not living this down-to-earth kind of, tribal life. No, they are living in a fantasy because this is where they retreated into to save themselves from their own trauma, their own emotional trauma. So they wanted to look away. They looked away from the darkness. They looked away from what was happening in the world, and they started to tell themselves that everything is perfect. And what I did, I looked at the terrible stuff. And I looked at all the hatred I have inside of me. And I looked at all the negative emotions I had inside of me. And that includes sometimes having like sexual thoughts with children. But I never went and did these things. No, I tried to understand why I have them. It's like, why do I sometimes hate my own father? These kind of things, instead of just hating him, trying to understand, why do I hate him so much? And that gave me a certain kind of freedom to do whatever I want to do, because I also realized it doesn't really matter. As long as I do something, it's already better than what I used to do before, which is basically doing nothing, because there are so many options available that in order to choose, we are often rendered motionless, because we already chose so many things, like what to eat. when you're living in a tribe, you don't have to choose what to eat, you just eat, right? What it's available, and probably nothing of these things that you eat is going to give you heartburn. So the life we live is quite confusing, and some things are considered healthy and others are unhealthy, and there are so many marketing lies out there that deciding what is healthy based on what other people tell you is basically impossible. So it's probably quite important to figure out for yourself which works. Now, I've been suffering from heartburn for quite some years, and I learned to figure out myself what works and what does not work. And that takes a lot of time and effort, because some things may give you heartburn on some days and then others they don't. Like, I always thought it was just the coffee, but it's not just the coffee. It's other things as well that give me heartburn sometimes. And it's also my emotions, so it's not just the food that I eat, but also the thoughts that I have and the emotions that are inside of me. So there are so many things connected to just heartburn that it's not just heartburn anymore. It's like a myriad of things coming together. Because if you believe coffee gives you heartburn, well, it might as well. But sometimes coffee helps me. Like today, I got work done because I drank coffee. And that's just what works for me at the moment. And today, the whole day, I was incredibly angry at anybody. People, the mere hint of somebody maybe talking to me already made me angry, because I just wanted to be alone. I just wanted to be alone, to figure stuff out for myself. And then, outside of this room, there was all this noise going on, and I hated it. But I also hated it because I couldn't have it. And that's the weirdest part of all of it. That sometimes we hate things because we can't have it. So maybe I hate my dad because I can't love him, But maybe it's not that I can't love him. Maybe he doesn't love himself enough, so he can't love me the way I would like to. Maybe I hate that because I cannot have the dad that I would like to have. But I have the dad that I have. And that sometimes makes me angry, because it's incredibly hard for me to love my father, because he is a lot of the things that I never want to be. And that makes it very hard, because we see ourselves in our relatives much more than we see ourselves in friends, for example. And now what worked for me today was to be patient and wait until until everybody went to bed, so I confined myself to my room. And even though I thought earlier already about eating something, I didn't do it because my feelings said, wait, just wait. So I watched a movie, The 10th Kingdom, the first one. Quite a nice show. Like a mini-series. It's like genuine, right? Genuine actors, just seems like actors that love acting, that just love doing the job and don't do it for their giant ego or something. It's just a good story, and, it's a bit more like theater, where people are actually having fun doing the acting, and they're not so serious about their role as, Captain Fantastic. That's actually not the movie. Captain Fantastic is a great movie, but I meant the other captain from the Marvel universe. These people take themselves too serious, and it's, annoyingly terrible to watch this. But, so I was watching that movie, and then, I was so angry on the inside, because a part of me wanted to work, but I knew I couldn't, because there was all this noise and I wanted to eat something. So what did I do? I just, undressed and just went to bed. And I just slept, because otherwise I probably would have masturbated, which I don't want to do anymore. But it's incredibly hard to not do that anymore, especially if you get frustrated with all this stuff going around. But it also makes me, realize what I need in order to work, because I want to have a family and I cannot, count on it. Sometimes, maybe my children are going to get sick or whatever, so I need to be there for them. So I need to be able to cope with stuff like this. Only I think that this is an entirely different situation, because, my parents are my parents, but, my children will be my children, different priority. It's just like that. So I also don't have to be too hard on myself, of course. So what I was doing was I just went to bed and then I slept, and then I woke up and I thought, okay, what time is it? I didn't really know. And it turned out to be like 12, and I realized everybody had gone to bed. Actually, I heard them going to bed, so I could get out of bed. And I went to fetch some food, like something that would give me energy, and then I just prepared some tea. But before I already wrote, I started writing. I ate something and then I started writing. And at one point I felt a bit tired, so I sat down, prepared tea, recorded a video, read a bit in a book. It's called Twig, from the Edge Chronicles. Always these chronicles. And yeah, it's just, another round of figuring out what to do, how to do it, when to do it, to be spontaneous about it. Because if you feel like you can't work right now, then you think about what do you need in order to work. And I realized I need quiet, so I need to work at night. But that in a way annoys me, because it sometimes makes me really tired. But I don't know if I just think it makes me tired because I've been told from a young age, how much sleep I would need in order to function. But I realize that it's not really true. I mean, there's reports of people who sleep 2 hours a night and they're fine. And then there's people who don't sleep ever, they just meditate and they're fine too. And who says I have to sleep that much anyway? I mean, at one point I'm surely going to collapse or something. Then of course there's people who never sleep, and you call that insomnia or something. And if they would just manage to cope with their own insanity, they'd probably work it out somehow. But then you have already so many ideas how unhealthy it is not to sleep, that it's probably hard to wrap your head around, that it actually works for you to never sleep. In a way, I would like to never sleep, but I also find it a bit exhausting. Plus, you have to have a lot of stuff to do to never sleep, and I don't see myself there yet. There's not enough for me to do to never sleep. That's just how I feel like. Plus, it's also relaxing to sleep. It's quite refreshing. It's like hitting reset, waking up with a new mindset. It's just this extra bit of, don't really know what's gonna happen when you wake up. So yeah, it's just about this, the individuality of things. What works for you and what works for other people. For me, it works to just sleep when I'm tired. But the thing is, I also can't sleep when I'm tired because I don't really have a regular job. I don't have a regular job because I chose not to have one. I chose not to have one because that's what I felt like, I want. I want to decide myself when to be awake, when to sleep, when to eat, when to work, when to take a break. I wanted to have that kind of freedom, but I also realized that to have that kind of freedom and to maintain it, I have to earn an income. I have to have an income. So I have to think about, okay, how am I going to get there where I can actually earn money with what I want to do? So it's not easy to figure that out. Like I struggled heavily to find my writing routine. In a way it came easy, but I just chose the stuff that came more easy to me because it's the stuff that I like doing. But it's still a struggle sometimes, like this book right now that I'm writing, it's a struggle. I'm struggling heavily because it's something new, and every time you try something new, it's going to be suffering. Because you're gonna be afraid, you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna hate it because it's different, and you have to adjust to it, and so you have to get into it a bit. And until you get into it a bit, it's going to be terrible. But then the thing is, you just continue. Don't stop. You just continue and you continue and you continue. And then you make a break in between and you wait until the moment is right. And then suddenly you realize, okay, it's taking shape now. But that takes persistence. So it takes persistence to become you, to chip away all the bits and pieces that don't suit you anymore, or that don't serve you anymore, and then realize what's underneath, like what is the new stuff that wants to come out. And that takes devotion, like I can do this mentality. I'm persistent, I will not let go, I will continue. Like a pit bull, as they always say, once he bites, he doesn't let go. To that idea, I find, people in spirituality always talk about letting go, but some things you need to hold on to. Like your faith or your trust and your devotion and this mentality, to continue to always seek for a solution. I think these kind of things are quite important to maintain and to continue to have. Because after all, no, I don't want to say that because it's absolutely wrong. Like people tell you the night is dark and full of terrors. I would say the night is quiet and gives you a lot of time to think, because nobody wants your attention. And that's very precious when you're living a life like I do, because I need that kind of time and space to think without anybody, knocking on my door, just barging in to tell me that my food is tasty. Like, I don't care, just eat it and enjoy it. Why do I have to know that? Just keep that happiness to yourself once. You don't always have to share everything. Like, you don't always have to share all your problems, and you don't always have to share all the things that you think are nice. Like, if you keep these things inside a bit, you can actually make sure they nourish you instead of always sharing it with others, because sharing means, you're giving it away. So just keep it for yourself. And if you don't share everything, you can just radiate love. You can just radiate these things instead of sharing yourself away all the time. So it does take energy and stamina to do recordings and write books, so I need to be focused and prepare myself to continue and to progress. Because the worst you can do is to be stuck in a rut with your creative work, because that means, it doesn't get you anywhere anymore. You have to change, like, constantly. Develop new skills, build on what you already know, but do things differently. Don't just do the same thing all the time. And finish your projects. I just came across George R.R. Martin today, and he didn't finish his project. He didn't finish his lifelong project because he got drawn into the outside, because he probably had a weak kind of character. And you can see that already in people because they're obese. It means, they don't manage themselves well. They just give in to all the temptations. So it's very tempting to be drawn to the outside and have people worship you. And that's why he never finished the books, because he liked it better to be worshipped rather than to work on himself. So he had a problem with being alone. Now that's just very simple psychology or something. So if you want to grow spiritually, it's once more important to learn how to be alone and to work on that. And if you start being creative, it may be that what you're going to do is going to become very unique, and people are going to, run in the doors, so to speak. Because they're going to love what you do, because nobody does what you do, because you're unique. And if you really tap into your creativity, you can create things that nobody has ever even thought about. I know what I do doesn't exist because I never existed in such a way. That's how I feel like. But I also make sure to maintain myself in my work. So you also develop a certain style, and that too can change. But if you're dependent on the intention and the worship of others, because you feel like you're not enough yourself, but of course you probably wouldn't know that, you just realize that you like it if people, praise you, then you're just escaping yourself. It's like having a lot of friends. Some people have so many friends. How many friends do you need? I don't need any friends. To me, maybe later on I will live in a community or something, but yeah. I haven't met a single friend that I felt like worth keeping in the end. But they were good for learning some kind of lessons. That sounds very sad. Let's end it at that.
He's just lonely and that's why he's making videos.